Kick-off this week, so the deadline is on Saturday at 1:30 p.m. UK time, with 4 games kicking off at 3 p.m. Then later in the evening, Man City and Haaland head to Brighton, and then Liverpool and Salah host Aston Villa. And we have 4 matches on Sunday, including Tottenham at home to Ipswich and Chelsea against Arsenal. Now, I've got 2 guests joining me in the studio today, Praz and FPL Harry. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me in the studio. And you both sold Haaland to bring in Salah and captain him last week. I mean, Harry, you must be delighted. I mean, I'm sat here like, oh, but you must be delighted with that.
Yeah, it went very well. Of course, every weekend now I've got to watch Manchester City play without him, but glad it started well. And
Praz, you must be delighted as well.
That moment when you're actually clicking confirm transfer is not easy, but then once you do it, it's okay. Yeah, so it worked out.
And it paid off, didn't it? It paid off for last week. Right, well, our hot topic this week is indeed Erling Haaland, because he's now the most transferred out player this week. Well over 350,000 transfers out so far. I mean, obviously, like we just mentioned, you both sold him, but if you had Haaland, like me and like plenty of other FPL managers, Harry, would you be selling him ahead of this game week?
Yeah, it's easy for us to sit here and say that it might be a sale again this week because we did it last week and we got the positive points from it in game week 10. It's never an easy decision to go and sell him. And I don't necessarily think Salah is a much better pick than Erling Haaland this week. I think it kind of depends on what that other transfer is. If you're selling a Calvert-Lewin or you're selling a cheap midfielder and you're getting in a Cunha, for example, that has Southampton at home, I quite like that. So it might depend on what that second transfer is.
We can have a look, Praz, at Manchester City's next 10 fixtures. When you're looking at them, Praz, if you have taken out Erling Haaland and you wanted to get him back in, say if he does start scoring again, which fixture and which game would you be looking at to maybe bring him back in?
I mean, the obvious one obviously is Everton, but that's a lot of time away. So you're looking at all these games and you're saying, is there one that I definitely want Haaland for? Look, Haaland's going to score points, right? He's not forgotten how to score goals. But I think I can see the Forest home game, which is something that will be appealing. But then Forest are defensively a lot better this year. And then there's a bunch of away games. You know, Crystal Palace could be one. But this is the reason why I sold, because I couldn't see in the next 6 weeks a week where I definitely need Haaland. He'll be fine, but then Salah is also fine.
Are you looking at those fixtures, Harry? You know, obviously, everyone that's taken out Haaland isn't going to enjoy the next 2 fixtures, although on paper they don't actually look as great as perhaps maybe a few of the others. But Brighton and Tottenham, given the way they both play, they both play a very similar way, very open. Surely those fixtures are perfect for Erling Haaland.
Yeah, and actually you might look at fixtures like this and wonder if they are better for him than some of the fixtures he hasn't necessarily scored in over the past couple of weeks. So, of course, I look at it and think, yeah, he can do well in these games. It's, again, down to the captaincy. I look at the fixtures that the likes of Mo Salah has, the likes of Cole Palmer has, or Bukayo Saka, who are all affordable if you don't go and own Erling Haaland. So it's more that I don't plan on captaining him in that game. It's not because I don't think he's going to score, because if I'm selling him thinking Haaland's not going to score, then I think I need to rethink that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what has happened then in the last 5 weeks? We can see compared to the first 5 weeks of the season, just look at those big chances scored. 7 out of 10 in the first 5, Praz, and 1 out of 6 in the last 5.
I think it's a case of, I mean, people believe in form. So if you want to say, like, you know, he's not having the same confidence, that's one analogy. The stats people will say, look, his XG over the 10 games is around 10 and he scored 11 goals. So it's basically he was overperforming in the first 5 weeks. You can call it luck or you can call it confidence, and he's underperforming in the more recent times. It has coincided with Man City's form as well, right? I mean, they've been struggling a little bit, both defensively and in an attack. They've got 3 away games in a row, which they've lost, and this is now another away game. Travel also comes into it. Like, it does add up.
So are you basically saying Man City are going to lose this weekend then, Praz?
I think it'll be not as great a performance that we were used to in the first 5 weeks.
I mean, you mentioned XG then just a second ago. He has got the highest XG in the last 5 game weeks, Harry. But look at the difference compared to those below him. That minus 2.9, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. We've seen, you know, stills of some of the chances he's missed, particularly in that Southampton game. Like last season, he had 55 big chances and he scored 21 of them. So that's sort of 2 in 5, which is what we'd expect. So we saw early on in the season that he was overperforming that with 7 out of 10, and then 1 out of 6 is underperforming. So we would expect something in the middle. And yeah, like, we don't expect him to underperform his XG like he has. We've seen great chances finished by him and he misses some, but it's only a matter of time, surely, that he comes back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin De Bruyne obviously was on the bench for the last game. game. Do you think this could coincide with maybe Haaland finding his sort of goal-scoring boots again?
I mean, it has to, because a lot of the games that we've been watching City play, it comes down to them just being void of ideas. And, you know, who better to put in the middle of the pitch than De Bruyne, who will actually find him. He'll get Haaland running again behind the line. So I do think it'll have an impact. But this week may come too early for De Bruyne. He only got 5 minutes midweek. But eventually, yes, I think De Bruyne will definitely have a positive impact.
OK, so if someone has 2 free transfers for this game week, would you be encouraging them, Harry, to do the same thing you did last week and sell Haaland and bring in Salah and captain him?
Yes.
You had to think about that.
Uncomfortably, yes. Just because I think that cheap forward, like a Matheus Cunha or some of the others that we'll look at, are much better than the midfielders in that. So I think the combination of that forward and Salah is better.
What do you reckon, Praz?
Yeah, and let's also remember Salah is 2.5 million cheaper. So you can use that money next week to get a Saka or a Palmer as well. So if you think about it as a triple move, it does make sense.
You've made my life very, very difficult, and I'm sure plenty of other FPL managers out there as well. Well, Erling Haaland does, of course, feature in our captain's poll, and it is a really tricky one this week with plenty of excellent options. We've also picked out Salah, Bruno Fernandes, Solanke and Bumo. You can scan the QR code along the bottom of your screen to cast your vote, and we'll check in on the standings at the end of the show. And don't worry, if you're not watching live, we'll leave the poll up until the deadline closes so that you can vote and see the results whenever you are watching. OK, it's time to return our attention to Tottenham now, because they are starting to attract a bit of attention ahead of Ipswich at home. And this is why. Let's have a look then. They've got the highest XG in the Premier League, and you can see there the highest XG against is Ipswich. So, Harry, for those Spurs attackers, which there are plenty of, should we start now to be really thinking about bringing them in if you don't have them?
So the tricky thing is, this time last week, when they just lost 1-0 to Crystal Palace, we were all thinking the complete opposite, that against Aston Villa and then a few more tricky games coming up, that actually they weren't worth it, despite some of the fixtures and despite some of the data that we were looking at. Now, after a big win and then a nice fixture at home to Ipswich at the weekend, it does look like we do want to start going back. The other thing noting is, yes, we're looking at Haaland having Spurs at home. That means they've got to go away to Manchester City after the Ipswich game. So you do have to have that a little bit in the back of your mind. I don't think it's quite as easy as, yes, you need to buy them for Ipswich, because still long term, I'm not certain on them.
Do you think, Praz, also with Spurs, they are very up and down, they're very inconsistent. You almost don't know which Spurs players are going to turn up on which day, if any of them. So that also makes the decision a little bit more difficult.
It does, but they're also cheap. Like if you remove Son from the equation, and we will talk about Son later, like Brennan Johnson is cheap, Solanke compared to like the Isaks, Watkins of the world is cheap. So I think there is also a case to say that, look, this is a team that just goes for it. You know, if they're down to 10 men, they go for it. If they're 2-0 up, they go for it. So it's a team which will get you goals, will get you attacking returns. If you can get one attacker and keep them a little bit medium term, I think I would still advocate for that.
Now, Dominic Solanke is a big talking point. I'm sure those, if they're selling Erling Haaland and not bringing in Mo Salah, then that would be a straight swap, Erling Haaland to Dominic Solanke this week, 16 points against Villa. However, Harry, he has been frustrating to own for FPL managers, hasn't he?
Absolutely, and I almost sold him going into game week 10 against Aston Villa, and I decided to do the other moves, and I am very, very grateful that I didn't. It does feel like he will get chances in that Spurs team. We've seen them create chances. We've seen their XG, and it might come and go. We saw a little bit of a different system in that game against Aston Villa, where Pape Sarr came in and played instead of Maddison. And I think that helps a lot in that midfield role, where Solanke isn't needed to go and win the ball back quite as much, because Sarr can go and do that. And if that is to stick in the next few games, I'm hoping that we see more data like we did in game week 10.
Yeah, a lot of people would have sold Dominic Solanke ahead of the last game week. So those of them that did keep him obviously got rewarded. Now, this is quite interesting to look at, Praz. In Spurs' last 2 home games, against West Ham, Solanke had a lot more touches, but all around the pitch, whereas against Aston Villa at home, he was playing as a centre-forward, way less touches, but look at where they were in and around the box, and that's why he got his rewards, because he was playing as a number 9.
Absolutely. I love this chart, by the way. I mean, it makes the exact point that Harry was making, which is, you see against West Ham, he has to come into the central areas to win the ball back, even though they still had good possession. Against Aston Villa, which was arguably a harder game, he stayed up front, and that made a massive impact. And the fact that he played on for 90 minutes, I mean, that final assist, the FPL assist he got for Maddison's free kick, it was only because he was on the pitch that late, right? So I think, yes, there is an element of he should come good. Maybe we were overreacting to those 3 games anyway, because before that, against Man United, he had good data as well. I think he's good for his price.
I have Jackson, right? And I'm thinking of potentially selling him for Solanke. But I'm only really thinking for this game week, so is that a pointless move?
I would wait. I still think the Chelsea fixtures, when we get to them, looking from game week 12 onwards, Jackson is one who's going to be very popular from next week.
Let's have a quick chat then, Praz, about Son, because when he plays, he does get returns. He's returned in the last 3 games he's played in, but minutes is an issue for Son, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he was carrying an injury and then he came back and he played 55 minutes in the previous game. I think we all saw he didn't really appreciate the early sub.
Yeah.
He got 45 minutes on Thursday night. So it looks like he's over the injury, but he's not over, he's still being managed. And so if you're looking for a player, he's now 10 million. We're not talking Solanke price or Johnson price. So if you have a Son, then you don't have a Palmer, or you don't have a Saka or a Salah. So that's the consideration you need to have. If you have him, great. I think he's a great option this week. But I think long term, I still worry that after this week, you probably want to move him on to one of the other guys.
I mean, Brennan Johnson seems to have nailed down his position in that starting attack, and he's a highly owned than Son, probably because of his price as well, Harry.
Yeah, so actually I really like Brennan Johnson. I agree with Praz that I don't think I would be going and buying Son new. If you have him, fine, you can keep him for Ipswich. But if you are looking for a Spurs midfielder to buy new, I absolutely think Brennan Johnson is the one to go and look at. The data has been pretty strong. He is absolutely on form. You can see how confident he is playing at the moment. And he's very affordable, so it doesn't really stretch the rest of your team if you go and buy him.
I think I made a mistake here because I actually sold Brennan Johnson last week for Saka ahead of Newcastle and Chelsea when Brennan Johnson had the games he has and he's got Ipswich at home. Anyway, doesn't matter. What about Pedro Porro is an interesting option because Spurs don't really keep clean sheets, Praz. But obviously going forward, he is a good attacking option.
He is, but... this is the fixture, right? I expect Porro to maybe get an attacking return, maybe a clean sheet, and I emphasize on maybe because they've got Romero out, Van de Ven out, so already a team that concedes a lot of chances. They have pace and a Romero type person to actually stop those counters, but now you don't have that. Dragusin really struggled in the midweek as well. They'll probably have Ben Davis, so I'm not expecting a clean sheet, but you could get lucky. Porro's a great attacking player as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Praz, Harry and I are busy preparing for Game Week 11. And now we're going to focus on Praz's team, Manchester United, because the next 3 fixtures look pretty tempting, Praz. Don't they? It is worth remembering Ruben Amorim comes in after the international break for Ipswich away, but look at those 3 there.
They're perfect. I mean, if you wanted a team to basically bounce back, these are the fixtures to help them do that. But I caution again, after that, it's Arsenal away, Man City away, Liverpool away. They're all on the horizon. So it's a bit like you want to target them, but then not focus on them too much because you'll want to exit soon as well.
Is it a case of, even though Ruben Amorim doesn't come in for Ipswich away, it is still a little bit risky with Man United assets, Harry, because we don't know what formation Ruben Amorim is going to play, the players he's going to fancy in his starting 11. So is it perhaps probably worth waiting for a few games to see what he does?
Well, the issue is if you wait a few games, you've missed those fixtures. So it does feel like this is the week to go and buy them. But then you are buying into a Manchester United team which is still under Ruud van Nistelrooy, which haven't been quite as exciting as maybe we thought they'd be after that first cup win against Leicester. So I think this is the week to do it if you're going to do it. But I would be buying players who are expected to be focal and important no matter what system we get under the new manager.
I mean, that sounds exactly like Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, he scored his first goal of the season, a penalty against Chelsea last game week. Is he the safest option, Praz?
He's the safest and the best option, but he's also not the cheapest. So, if you can get a Garnacho and Rashford or a Højlund for a lot cheaper, but I think Bruno would be worth it because, like Harry said, he would be the central guy. He's going to have license to stay forward as opposed to with Ten Hag. He had a lot of defensive duties as well. So I think he is the go-to guy, but can you get to him that easily? And you have to maybe think about leaving him out in a 3-week period. So it's tricky.
I mean, looking at that worst XG performance in the whole of the Premier League this season, Harry, do you see why people would maybe be going for him, even though he has got the worst XG?
Yeah, so, I mean, worst XG underperformer, but it means he's getting the chances, in theory, in the first place. He's been a little bit unlucky. He's on penalties as well. He's going to play 90 minutes. The fixtures there are really nice. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but if you're looking for a differential at the moment, he's probably the best one there is out there at the moment.
Well, let's have a look at other options then. because obviously we don't know who Ruben Amorim is going to pick in his starting 11 when he comes in for Ipswich away. Obviously, minutes played, you can see Joshua Zirkzee has played way less minutes. But out of those, if we take Bruno Fernandes out, Praz, is there anyone that takes your fancy that you would potentially be going for or keeping an eye on?
I think Garnacho is a good pick. Now, the thing is, last night, Ahmad was really good. And so if he's fit, then, you know, he is then competing with Garnacho for that right wing or left wing spot. Rashford has been very disappointing, but you never know in the new system. You know, it's not like he'll be dropped. And then Haaland, look, I think with Haaland, the thing is he has been really poor up top because he's not getting the chances. But at some point you take a leap of faith and you say, under Amorim, the striker is really important. They make the important runs. So I think Haaland is like a sleeper pick where you think maybe he becomes something which he's not now, but he could.
Yeah, Haaland's an interesting talking point, Harry. He's only had 4 shots in the Premier League the whole of this season. So why do you think people should be keeping an eye on him? I mean, forwards have been quite difficult to pick in FPL this season. So could he be worth a punt?
Yeah, well, I all think we know how well the Sporting Lisbon striker is doing in that system at the moment. So he is absolutely one, if they can find some sort of link between them and to play him in a similar role, that there are going to be chances there. I am still not certain of it. Again, those 4 shots so far this season doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. And even with the system this weekend against Leicester, I'm not certain that I'd be buying him this week, I don't think.
What's interesting about this Man United team is when Ruben Amorim comes in, Praz, it's likely his favoured formation is a 3 at the back, which means full-backs turn into wing-backs. This could be potentially very exciting for owners of Diogo Dalot or people maybe looking to bring him in.
Yeah, I think one of Dalot or Mazraoui will be really important. The only problem is, again, we're going into it a little bit blind, where will he play that formation? Will it be Mazraoui and Dalot, or will he play somebody like a Garnacho there, or even an Anthony? People are saying, you know, left wing back, he could do a job there. So it's a little bit unknown. So going there, when the data, I mean, we showed the Man United data, they have kept clean sheets, but the underlying data hasn't been that amazing. I'm a little bit sceptical going into them this week.
If you had to pick one out of Mazraoui and Dalot, who would you be going for?
I think Dalot is the safest. He can play both sides. He's been a sort of staple in that Manchester United team for a long period of time. He is more expensive, though, so 5.1 for him compared to about 4.5 for Mazraoui. Slightly more difficult to get to, but I think it's worth it for the safety.
Defensively, are we expecting clean sheets, maybe more from Manchester United?
No. I mean, look, I think I'm being a little bit of a pessimist Man United fan, but the thing is, it's going to take a lot of work. Like, we were all optimistic, new manager bounce and all of that. Last night, Man United were dire, and it was not a good performance. So I have to be honest here that, you know, I don't expect an immediate bounce back. So how can I recommend the defenders?
I will leave it to you, the Manchester United fan. All right, time to answer some of the questions then that you've been sending in. Let's start with this one, and it's a big dilemma, I think. Is it worth, Harry, doing Cole Palmer to Mohamed Salah due to the injury doubt that Cole Palmer currently has?
So no, I think if we look at the Chelsea fixtures, I know Salah is really, really tempting, and he's a great option this week and going forward as well. But the Chelsea fixtures from game week 12 are really nice. They start with Leicester away straight after the international break. And if you've sold Palmer, you'll want him back straight away. So I don't think I'd be selling him.
Do we expect Cole Palmer to start this weekend, Praz?
I think so. I mean, Arsenal is a very important game. We saw him walking around the stadium last night. Yes, I do think he'll start.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, OK, the second question is, I'm seriously considering the Strand, Larsson and Cunha double up. Wolves fixtures are too good. Harry, what do you think about that?
I can understand why people would want to do it, because there are a few cheaper forwards with their fixtures coming good in a few weeks, or with fixtures that are starting to draw to a close. So I can understand why you look at Southampton this week and think it's a good entry point. I'm not sure I'd want to double up, and then Aït-Nouri is very popular at Wolves as well, so that would potentially be a triple up on the team who are currently sitting bottom of the league. Doesn't feel the best strategy, so I would just stick with one, I think.
You own Cunha.
I do.
What do you think of the double up?
I don't like it.
No.
Like, there'll be weeks where Wolves score 0 goals and you're stuck with 2 of their forwards.
Yeah. OK, next question. Is Gvardiol essential, Harry?
So I haven't owned him, and he continues to score. I think that's 3 goals in his last 5 games. So I continue to say, oh, he's going up in price. He's not going to keep scoring. They're not keeping clean sheets. And then he continues to do the points. I still don't think so. I look at those fixtures. They might be good for scoring goals, but I don't look at them for clean sheets. And as much as his goal threat is great, I still prefer someone like a Gabriel or a Virgil van Dijk at a similar price.
Yeah. OK, Praz, this question, quite a difficult one. Luis Diaz played 90 in the Champions League, but only seems to start as a sub in the league. Do I keep or sell him?
It is a very difficult one, and we don't know the answer. Like, how can you drop a player after a hat-trick?
Yeah.
But then Gakpo is playing amazingly as well. So could they play the same formation they played midweek, which is basically Diaz up top? Maybe, but then Darwin Núñez also exists. So I find it very difficult to make a strong recommendation. I think I would just maybe lean towards keeping this week.
OK, and finally, question 6. McNeil to Semenyo. A good transfer?
I think so, because Everton have been struggling and there have been some injury doubts with McNeil as well. So Semenyo has a good fixture run coming up. So, yes.
Right, perfect. OK, let's see then how both of your teams are shaping up for Game Week 11. Praz, we're going to start with you. I mean, when I look at this, Praz, something stands out to me, and that is Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front. Explain.
I mean, I got him before he had Ipswich, Southampton, and it looked brilliant. And this is, by the way, the same thing that we've talked about for Wolves, right? Sometimes you look at fixtures and you say, oh, I need to get their striker. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Look, he's had a lot of chances, but it's not worked out, and it's fine. We make predictions, and not all predictions turn out to be true. So I am looking to ship him out this week. I'm not so enthusiastic about having him, even if it's West Ham. And there are a few options. We've talked about Jimenez. We've talked about, we've talked about Haaland as one of the options. I may look at Wissa. So that's maybe where I go with this. But I am happy with the rest of the team. Like, that midfield, for me, is the midfield to have from next week. So
Which forward are you leaning towards?
At the moment, the Man United fan in me wants Haaland, and so that's what I'm thinking about. It's a leap of faith. I mean, we've talked about the 4 shots, but I think eventually, if he becomes the central striker for Amorim, I just get in there early and I get this Leicester and Ipswich games as a bonus. Yeah.
OK, Harry, let's have a look at your team then. Because obviously you benched Antoine Semenyo last week and you paid the price for that. So what are you going to do with Antoine Semenyo this week, Harry?
I'm going to bench him again. I don't really have much of a choice. I look at my front 7 that I've got at the moment, and the only really one I could bench with a slightly more difficult fixture is Chris Wood, and he's just won Player of the Month, I think, and there's no chance I bench him on the form that he is producing at the moment. So I do have him as a sub in case we don't see Cole Palmer at the weekend, which does feel quite nice. My front 8 feels like it's looking strong after I've made that Haaland out move, apart from having no Haaland.
Just quickly, we have Raya on the bench and Fabianski starting. Is that the Chelsea fan in you, Harry, or you just don't want double Arsenal for Chelsea away?
Yeah, a little bit of bias, but I have gone with Fabianski at home to Everton, and, if Calvert-Lewin does miss more chances, hopefully I get a clean sheet there.
Yeah, absolutely right. OK, just enough time then to work out who you're going to captain. Is this one of the trickiest captaincy decisions of the season? Arguably, there is no major standout for this week. So, I mean, first of all, who are you both captaining?
I'm on Mo Salah. Brought him in for Haaland, so it has to be back on him. There are a few other tempting ones, though.
Yeah, when you sell Haaland, you've taken out one major captaincy option every week. So we're left with Salah and maybe Solanke, so I think I'll be on Salah as well.
What if you own both of them, Harry? Because some people do.
That's a really difficult one. I just think the form for Manchester City versus Liverpool would edge it in favour of going on Salah this week.
Also, with that Salah fixture, Villa at home, after the Champions League, they seem to struggle. They, of course, lost in midweek as well. So does that come into people's thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I think form is a very important factor. And there's another factor with Salah. I mean, let's say they both score 1 goal each. Salah gets 5 points, Haaland gets 4. Salah's been great for bonus. And so those are factors that also play into it.
Yeah, let's have a look at our poll standings then. Who is the most popular captain? Currently 41% of you saying Salah with Aston Villa at home. 20% of you have gone other. Only 13% Solanke, Ipswich at home, Harry. Are you surprised by that or not really?
A little bit, but I still think there's a little bit of bias about the fixtures that we saw before that we may well get a performance like that in the game against Ipswich at the weekend. I think Haaland only at 11% is quite surprising to see it as low as that.
I think I'm going to captain Erling Haaland. The way that Brighton play, I know because City haven't been playing that badly and he's had chances, I'd be more worried if City are playing badly and they haven't been creating. But surely it's just a matter of time. And this almost feels like the perfect fixture, Praz.
I mean, you have to do it. I mean, I think Haaland's still a great choice. I'm actually shocked to see Haaland below Bruno Fernandes and Solanke. He's still a great shout. He will score you goals. And what better time to do it when others are selling?
What about Cole Palmer? Obviously not in the poll. But Arsenal at home as well, the fact that it is at home, we think he's going to start, Harry. Is it a bold choice if you captain Cole Palmer?
I'm even as a Chelsea fan, I don't think I'd go there this week. There are some nice fixtures over the next few weeks that I'd consider it, but Arsenal are very strong defensively, specifically away from home as well. And with the slight doubt, even if he does play, is he fully fit? So I probably wouldn't do it this week.
And just quickly, Praz, presumably Saka, not an option?
Not really. Away game. From next week, he'll come into it, but not really this week.
Yeah, I'm not going to be captaining Saka this week against Chelsea, no doubt.